And I'm just disgusted by the way that the US has enabled it. And I will also say, I don't think that there's been an American president in my lifetime that's not a war criminal. Obama was drone striking people. Bush, committed atrocities in Iraq. And I just don't think that this is what American taxpayers should have our billions of dollars spent on. I think it should be spent on Americans, not on, bombing innocent people abroad.
Yeah, and this is one of the issues where people criticized you, and I actually found myself thinking, well, look, I think they criticized you in a almost how surprising that you, a journalist, have your own views on what's happening, and that's always a non-starter for me. Like, the truth is, people engage in journalism, people who are news reporters for the mainstream media, who say they're objective and nonpartisan, everybody's got their own ideology, attitude about what's happening. I think it's the future to just be honest about that. Should know where I'm coming from. I'm a libertarian. Generally what I feel. That doesn't mean I'm like unfair. I'm going to try to spin things, but I'm going to say how I feel about things. And I'm, labeled an opinion commentator, but I honestly think that's just better than trying to pretend I'm totally neutral and I have no views of my own and I'm just calling it like I see it. That really describes no one in media. And then people feel cheated to then later find out, oh, but you're, behind the scenes you were saying this or tweeting this or doing this. This news opinion distinction, I think, actually just needs to die.
Absolutely. It's a farce. It's a total farce. It's a joke. And I mean, listen, I was a columnist at the Washington Post, so I wasn't a straight news reporter, but exactly what you said, Robby. I mean, just this idea that these straight news reporters don't have opinions and that isn't an editorial choice is obscene. And also, I mean, I've worked at plenty of mainstream institutions that are trying to get laws changed. They'll do a big series on gun rights, right? Trying to get gun laws changed. That's a political act. So, I think as we know with mainstream media, it's not that you can't have an opinion, it's that you have to have the right opinion. And if you don't have a specific opinion, it's harder in the mainstream media for you. And so I think that is, yeah. I've always been very open with my beliefs because I think it builds trust. And I think everybody that follows me and reads my work and actually listens to what I have to say, they don't all agree with me, but at least they know where I stand.
All right, we got to get to some ground where we've had disagreements in the past. You've been in the headlines a lot lately for your commentary about Luigi Mangione, specifically saying something along the lines of reacting to him with a kind of joy, and then that interview you recently did where you were, and in fairness to you, I think you were describing his appeal, not necessarily to you, but to his female fans or the fans he has, which they do exist. I find it utterly baffling, but they do exist. But how do you, respond to accusations? People say, well, it looks like you're going a little soft on this guy. He murdered someone in cold blood on the street. He premeditated. He planned to do it. And the fact that the healthcare system is bad, we all agree on that, doesn't really, it doesn't excuse the actions, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And I never said that it did. I think it's very easy to constantly take everything that I say out of context, which I know the news media likes to do. But here's the reality. There is a fandom around Luigi. And I have said from the jump that it's important to examine that fandom and understand why people have these sentiments towards him. Look, I would never argue that shooting someone dead in the street is not a crime. My point is that framing Brian Thompson as some innocent family man is not really a fair, full picture. It sort of removes the things that he did that harmed a lot of people. He's a CEO of a company that is sort of helping to kill people by withholding healthcare. Does that mean that he should be shot dead in the street? I mean, I think there are absolutely better ways to solve that system. I don't think that shooting people dead in the street is going to fix our healthcare system, on a broad basis. But I think that that's the point, is that I'm trying to make this nuanced point that, listen, when we talk about this guy as, oh, this innocent person, we're sort of absolving him of a lot of the harm that he did. And we need to acknowledge that harm if we ever want to fix the healthcare system.
I think this gets to the most serious disagreement I have with you, because you say, okay, so nuance in this situation, and I hear that. I think more nuance is always good and appropriate while still being totally morally shocked and outraged by what happened to the CEO. But, I've been reading a lot of your writing over the years, and you've written about, Nina Jankowicz, Pamela Geller, libs of TikTok, and I think critics of you would say that, when you're describing someone you are sympathetic to, like, for instance, Nina Jankowicz, who you wrote about in the Washington Post, you talk about the harassment and the death threats and all of the bad responses this person got, and which I'm sure is true, but it's...
To be clear, she didn't murder anyone.
Well, right, but here's what I'm getting at. It's a lot of, when you're sympathetic, it's a lot of, all the criticism of this person is so evil and wrong and bad, but then, like, when it's actual violence, there's nuance.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not, Robby. I would say there's nuance in all of these different situations. Nina Jankowicz was like a government official that was running like a misinformation thing in the government. It has nothing to do with, like, political violence in terms of
But what I'm saying is that you treated the harassment that someone you liked was getting as so evil and beyond the pale, Robby, whereas where then actual violence gets nuance. That would be my foundational
absolutely.
criticism.
Let's just be clear. That's not true. I write a lot about online harassment and abuse, as you know. This is a major core of my beat, and it's something that I've obviously dealt with as well. Most of us have online. So I believe in nuance on that issue, absolutely. And I write very critically about these sort of harassment campaigns against people. But just because I write critically about a harassment campaign about someone doesn't mean I'm universally sympathetic to them. I mean, there's a lot of people that I don't agree with politically, that I don't personally like, that, I've written, I guess, sympathetically about them, because, again, I'm trying to write about them in the context of them being targeted by this very intentionally bad faith or, cruel campaign. Just to go back to the Luigi stuff, I think that we as a society just need to look at where we put our moral outrage. As you said, Robby, I think you just said something like, you were horrified and outraged at the death of Brian Thompson. I think that's great. We should be outraged at violent death, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think that the question that I have tried to raise, and many others, is why don't we view victims of our barbaric healthcare policies as outrageous? Why aren't we morally outraged about somebody having, a greedy insurance company withholding cancer treatment from a dying patient? We should be equally outraged about those deaths. And so I just want to make sure that in any conversation that we have about healthcare and these CEOs, that we also speak about the murders of the victims, rather, of our healthcare system.
How do you approach the issues of when to reveal, personal information about people you are covering? Because that's one of the things that people on the right have, I think, most gone after you for. Reporting on the true name of libs of TikTok. Long time ago, you reported on Pamela Geller, who's a known anti-Islamic conservative activist person. You connected the dots on that her daughters are these influencer people, and you published that in the Daily Beast.
Her daughters were bringing the mother on stage. Mm-hmm. So I think if you're a major
so what do you think goes into the decision for when it's okay and when it's not?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So, as somebody that's constantly been doxxed, right? Like, I am very careful about kind of who and when I cover and how I reveal personal information. My feeling with the libs of TikTok thing is this lady was literally directly affecting laws in Florida. We had DeSantis's press secretary, Christine, whatever her name is, talking about how she was influencing policy in Florida. She had taken millions of dollars of funding to build a media company from Seth Dillon at that time, or at least hundreds of thousands. I'm not sure if it was millions. I think it was 2 million, but I can't remember the exact number. Either way, she had taken funding to build this media company. She was essentially acting as an assignment editor for all of the right-wing media, and she herself was giving interviews to outlets like the New York Post and others. So at that point, and she's got millions of followers, and she's being cited by also all of these other extremists. So at that point, my feeling was, listen, this is a woman who has tweeted under her handle before. She didn't take any sort of egregious steps to really hide her identity, other than she was sort of anonymous. I think it's in the public interest to know who this is. Again, I think the American public, if an anonymous Twitter account is shaping US public policy, we should know who runs that Twitter account. And so, yeah, I reported on her identity and gave her more than enough time to, to give a statement about that. But at that point, I think your identity is in the public interest.
Right. But then as a result of that,